Welcome everybody to a special edition of the GameThinkTalk show. I am your host, Canadian Matt. I am with my permanent guest on here, American Matt from WWG Gaming.
What's up?
And Matt has been kind enough to show us a little sneak peek at the Nintendo Switch that they've had over there in their office. Let's see that bad boy. Oh, that is great.
That's the back. Just because that's the prettiest part. Let me turn the screen on so there's a little bit something to look at.
I mean, that's what I'm hearing is that the screen is top of the line. Looks incredible.
I'm not sure how... let's get that update off there.
At this point, I'll take... Okay.
So that's pretty much all I've had to look at for the past few days. There's not much else to do. This isn't connected to the internet. Mm-hmm. I can't perform the update that it's asking me to perform, but I was able to set up a profile and kind of click around. They do have this little news section.
Does it have menu music?
No. I hope it will eventually.
Yeah, Nintendo's had amazing menu music since the Wii.
Yeah, and so when it goes into sleep mode and you wake it up, you have to press any button 3 times, the same button 3 times in a row.
Like a Tekken combo.
Exactly. And most people always go for the A button or like one of the main face buttons.
I wouldn't want to wear
this little clicky noise.
Okay.
You hear that?
Ooh.
But if you branch out and click something else.
Oh, Nintendo.
Yeah. Or you got... I always go for the horn. I swear that exact same sound effect is in Mario Paint on the Super Nintendo.
Did you have a GameCube?
I didn't ever own a GameCube. I was always playing my friend. I had 2 close friends with GameCubes.
They probably brought it over by the
Smash
handle.
Brothers and actually no, I was always over at their house. But
well, the reason I brought it up is that the GameCube had that. They had their own sort of like funny, quirky melody that would start up the GameCube startup sound. But if you held the Z button or something, it would do a lot of like similar sound effects to that, like honking noises and kind of goofy Nintendo stuff. Man, they never take themselves too seriously unless it comes to polish. And now they're very serious. But I love that they're injecting that bit of fun. Okay, first question I wanted to ask you, Matt, is about this controller desyncing we've been seeing on Twitter. A lot of people are saying the left Joy-Con when in TV mode is coming desynced. Game Explain had run some tests, and they were saying that this had to do with the hand getting in the way. So, like, have you experienced anything of this sort?
I have not. I saw people, because you and I both follow a lot of journalists on Twitter, and I saw a few people were saying that, this is a concern because this is not an isolated thing. We're seeing many reports and many people are experiencing this. That could be true. I don't know. It's never happened to me. It could be because, my dock is 6 feet away from me, so maybe I'm just sitting close enough to where even if my hand gets in a certain position, it's not an issue. But when you have the controllers, the Joy-Con kind of docked in this little grip here, that's usually how I'm playing. I've held the Joy-Con quite a bit, just one in each hand. And then I've been spending more time with them docked in the grip, and I hold it very standard like you would an Xbox One controller, and it's never been an issue. I'm still not exactly sure what's causing that for everybody.
Have you been experimenting with covering up the left Joy-Con with your hand and sort of, could you put it behind your back and test it out that way?
Maybe. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. To answer your question, no, I haven't intentionally tried to cut off the signal. All I can say is I've been gaming like a regular human being. Like I've been gaming on and holding my controllers like any other controller or console for my entire life, and I haven't had a single issue. So I'm not quite sure what everybody's doing that's making that happen.
They're probably reaching into the silver lining of a Doritos bag.
Right.
Losing the signal that way. Okay, so hopefully that could be an isolated incident. The internet is a bit of an echo chamber. if one person from Polygon, I know Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb, these people that have big followings, if they're saying they're having these problems and it gets retweeted thousands of times, and people are going to act like the world is falling. So hopefully that's
or
not
it
going to
could
be a
be,
widespread
the first
issue.
thing you asked me is, have you tried holding your hand over the Joy-Con? Have you tried? It could be that it happened to one or two people, and then everybody tried to reproduce it, and they said, I wonder if the signal can get cut off, and then they would do all kinds of things to see if they could interrupt the signal, and then when they succeeded, that's really when the echo chamber comes and everybody storms in Twitter and they're like, yeah, man, us too, happened to us.
Is the left Joy-Con the one with the infrared, or is that the right?
That's actually in the right. The right has the IR blaster and the NFC reader and all that stuff. So it is the left one that apparently is getting cut off for people.
Yeah, left one.
Yeah, the left Joy-Con is just pretty standard, not a whole lot there. And then it's actually the let's see. The right one is the one with all the special stuff in it. You got the NFC reader for Amiibo are in there, and then the IR blaster is on the bottom. So you have more tech and more stuff crammed into the right one. So I would think if signals were going to get crossed and mixed and interrupted, it would be in the right one. But I don't know. I don't know what everybody's doing to make that happen.
Well, hopefully it can be patched up in a firmware update moving forward. Or they just had some bum prototype units or something on the way out. We'll find out. I'm sure that would have been something that would have came up in the years of development time they've been working on this. Oh, I wanted to ask you about the Joy-Cons. Have you been using the side straps on those, the little the wrist strap holder? Do you find that makes it a little more comfortable?
I haven't been using those because the only game I've been playing is Breath of the Wild. I put them on as soon as I unboxed the unit just to try them out. I don't know if I actually have them in here. The locking mechanism on them is kind of weird. I remember an attendant had to show me how to slide it in there and then lock it in when I was at the preview event in New York. And when I tried it on my own here, of course, the instruction book, like the quick start guide, whatever, all the paperwork that was in the box was like over my shoulder. I didn't even look at it. So that's probably my fault, and it's probably very simple. But once I got the thing on there, there's a locking mechanism on the end, so it doesn't come like flying off, and you have to kind of like lift it and then pull back. And I had I had to fidget with it for about 20 seconds before I felt like I wasn't like trying to rip it off.
Lift it and pull back in that order.
I think I have them in the box here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to try to show you this thing so you can see what's going on. So you have the doodad here, and you see that white thing?
Yes.
That is the actual locking mechanism.
Looks like an inflamed tonsil.
And you have to, when it slides on, you kind of like push it down, and it locks into place. And you actually push it this way. So it has to come out and then up a little bit to slide back off.
Okay. So things aren't accidentally slipping on and off. Everything's snapping into place.
Right, because these are the things that actually go on your wrist, and if people drop it, there has to be some kind of locking mechanism. So I'm probably just, honestly, I think I'm just a dummy and I haven't taken the time to really get used to it. But I really haven't had any reason to use those yet. I've been using the grip that comes with the Switch as well, the one that looks like a special little dog, which it is. It's a very comfortable controller.
What are the four lights in the middle section on the left? Is that a charging indicator?
This grip is not a charging grip. The one that comes with the Switch is just. I'm not exactly sure what those are indicating. It could, if you have multiple people playing, that could be like like on the Xbox, you have the ring that shows you if you're player 1, 2, 3, or 4. I think that'll come into play when you are playing with multiple people. It'll show you kind of which player you are. And yeah, because they both stay on when you're actually playing, and the light stays at the top. So I think that's kind of like the player one position. But for $30, you have to buy the grip that actually charges the Joy-Con when you're playing. That is a separate purchase.
Okay, now since everything related to the Switch is so expensive, how have you found the build quality of everything?
Man, that's my favorite thing about it, honestly. It really, for how small it is. Are you planning on picking one of these? I know if you play Breath of the Wild, you're going to be playing it on the Wii U. Is that correct?
Most likely, but this thing looks so slick.
It's so small, and it feels.
Oh yeah, look at that.
There's the top there. You can see the ventilation.
Mm-hmm.
The game card there.
Oh yeah.
Which, see if I can balance that on my finger. It's this tiny little card. I mean, they are minuscule. So,
and when you're plugging in the game card into the system, it's pretty instantaneous when this thing pops up and gets going. I mean, you're just hopping into a game as fast as a cartridge console.
Yeah, I mean, right when Breath of the Wild, when you stick it in there, it reads it right away, and then when you boot it up, it takes maybe 8 or 9 seconds to boot the game up and get to the main menu.
And there was no install, no download?
No, nothing like that.
Well, you wouldn't be able to download anyway because it doesn't have the network connectivity.
Right. Yeah, I'm still on version 1.0 of the game, so I expect there will be a little bit of patching.
The other day, Mankind Divided downloaded a 12 gigabyte update for like this breach crap, so I deleted the whole thing. But please continue about something more interesting than Mankind Divided. It's just that seems so refreshing that you can just pop a cartridge in and get right into a game.
You didn't have you? When's the last time you used a cartridge for gaming?
When I have friends come over that don't play a lot of modern games, I was telling you this earlier.
Oh, yeah.
It's like if they don't like Rocket League, I'm not going to teach them how to play NHL. Maybe Helldivers or something. But usually what happens is they see the Super Nintendo and they go, let's just play that. And it is so amazing to just pop a cartridge in and go bing. And you can be playing. Yeah, you can be playing within a few seconds. That's what I didn't like about the later Zeldas was all this long story crap and Mario Galaxy, all this crap. I just want to get in and play. Super Mario Brothers 1, the best thing. The title screen, you press start and he just runs from the title screen and goes.
Yeah.
So this is a throwback to that.
Well, I'll just mean cartridge gaming generally. I mean, I've been playing on a 3DS for years, so I'm used to it. But people who aren't used to cartridge gaming, who are about to get a Switch, it's going to blow their minds like how fast when you stick it in there, it's like the game it reads it right away and it's ready to go. And when things are loading, like you don't hear things spinning and it's just everything stays kind of quiet and instant and fast. There are a lot of advantages to cartridge gaming, to flash memory drives. I mean, over, discs spinning and being read. And I did buy there are no mandatory installs, but you're going to want to buy a micro SD card, probably ASAP. And a neat little part of the design is the kickstand that's on the back here. That pops up to let you play in tabletop mode. And then also the micro SD slot. You can't really tell. I don't know if you can see. There's a little slot right there. That's where you put the micro SD card, and when you close the kickstand, like that acts as your little cover, which is nice. It's a neat little part of the design. That's something so functional and integral to the actual console, doubles as your memory, kind of like protection slot, so you don't have a separate thing that you have to like flick out with your nail for a minute to finally pry open and get to. It's very easily accessible and quick, and it's something you're interacting with pretty frequently. Something else interesting that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, this vent on the top is it gets used when this thing is docked, especially playing Breath of the Wild. There were moments. Breath of the Wild is a fairly quiet game. The music is intertwined with the kind of ambient noises the soundtrack every now and then consists, for the most part, of just like fluttering piano for a few seconds and then nothing, strings that fade in and out very quietly. The music comes and goes in Breath of the Wild, almost like, the breeze comes and goes when you're outside, or birds chirping. It's really, really neat, but it's a very quiet game when you're just kind of wandering. And when you're in big open spaces and there's a lot of foliage and grass and enemies and lots of stuff going on, I could actually hear the fan running in this little thing while I was sitting in the dock. And I went over and I held my hand over it, and it was very hot, like really hot air coming out of the top here. So the up clock when it's being docked is significant, and it is generating some heat, and the fan in there is doing some work because it blows out hot air. And when I was playing Breath of the Wild for a little while, and then I took it out of the dock to go play in bed, and the back was really warm. So this thing does, for how small it is, and actually probably because it's so small, it does generate quite a bit of heat when it's really chugging on those open world games.
No, that's just when they said that playing Breath of the Wild on the Switch is going to give you enhanced environmental sound effects. That's what they were talking about. That vent.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that worry you at all? I mean, that much heat and that much hot air bursting out of this thing. I mean, they have crammed a lot of gear into there, as you quote called it, a miracle of engineering. Are we going to see a whole bunch of melted switches within a year?
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I've been playing a lot. I've been going in multi-hour sessions while it's docked and going through areas where it's tons of high grass and lightning and thick rain, and the rain splatter effects are on everything that you can see, and when the sun is shining, it's reflecting off of every blade of grass that's swaying, and you can pick out every individual blade. There's a lot going on, and I've been playing for a long time, and it felt very warm when I took it out, but it didn't feel like, oh shit, I need to turn this off and let it rest for a while. So yeah, that same article where I called it a miracle of engineering, I don't know if you saw those pictures of the inside of the Switch without one of the halves on it, but it is there's no room for anything else. I mean, maybe you can fit a few motes of dust in there without screwing something up, but everything is so compact and crammed into that form factor. It literally could not have been any smaller, and they literally could not have put anything else in there. Nintendo and Nvidia, they worked hard to engineer that to be so compact. So it'll be interesting to see what other games other than Breath of the Wild in the coming years that really try this thing and really like push it to its limits. It'll be interesting to see how hot they make it run.
Let's talk about battery life. How have your experiences been in that realm?
Today was the first day that I got the low battery warning, and that's because as soon as I woke up, I started playing Breath of the Wild in handheld mode. I was playing it for probably about an hour and a half last night from bed, and then I woke up. It hadn't been charging. I just picked it back up off the floor and took it in and had to crank the brightness up a little bit from last night, and then I started playing again, and I probably played for another 2 hours, and then I got the low battery warning. It was at like 10 or 15%. So I that's to say I was pretty impressed. So I know Game Explain, they did their thing where they turned the brightness to max, they maxed out the volume, they toggled on Wi-Fi, and then they just played, and they got 2.5 hours out of it, which I thought was pretty good considering how freaking bright this thing gets. It's even with the brightness all the way down, when you're looking at something bright or kind of white-ish in the game, it like lights up your room. So it's a bright screen.
Yeah, because I was going to ask that. You had said that you had to turn the brightness up a little bit when you were playing it again today. So in sort of a daytime, well-lit area, where did you have your brightness on for a comfortable level?
It was in the middle. It was right in the middle, and I could have played it all the way down. I wouldn't have been struggling to see anything, but I wanted everything to be very vibrant and bright. Breath of the Wild is a gorgeous game, and you talk about the attention to detail Nintendo puts into their menus and their home screens and operating system. I don't know how long they've been working on Breath of the Wild, but it feels like a magnum opus. It feels like every single little town and area and shrine and puzzle and enemy and character and face and voice. I mean, it really seems like they were trying to make a perfect game. It's amazing.
I think Wii U owners that pre-ordered this game back in 2014, they can tell you how long Nintendo's been working on it for. Before we move on to talk about what you can talk about with Breath of the Wild, how does this thing feel in terms of if you were holding it in tablet mode? When I'm playing the Vita, I tend to shift around a lot, trying to find sort of a comfortable feel. Is it pretty easy to find a comfortable spot? Were you using the kickstand mode at all?
I haven't been using it in tabletop mode. I haven't been using it with the kickstand. There's been no reason to, really. I think that's more for when you're going to be playing multiplayer with the Switch out and about.
So it feels good. It doesn't feel too heavy having both Joy-Con on the tablet and holding it.
I mean, when I was laying in bed, I definitely I was kind of like looking down and had my elbows and forearms kind of resting kind of on my sides, and so I had it kind of propped when I was laying in bed and playing. But this morning I was pretty much just holding it while I was sitting on the couch, and it is comfortable. It's it's pretty thin, so you don't have like a lot to wrap your palms around. You're pretty much going to be gripping this with the pads of your fingers. I was playing in handheld mode for hours today, and I didn't get cramped up or uncomfortable. You just have to be cognizant and be like aware of how hard you're pinching the thing, and try not to wear out your fingers. But I haven't had any issues, and I haven't heard anybody else talk about discomfort while they were playing in handheld mode.
When you've been playing, do you feel like once you have the chance to have a Pro Controller that's going to be the preferred way to play, or do you find that the tablet mode would be fine with the Joy-Con?
When I do get the Pro Controller and I have it docked, I'm going to be using the Pro Controller. I like the thicker, and it's, I like the Wii U Pro Controller. You just couldn't use it a whole lot because a lot of games required you to use the Wii U tablet screen. But I just like that form factor, and the grip here kind of emulates that form factor. It's similar shape. It's just not very thick. It's comfortable. It's perfect. Like, I would have no qualms finishing the whole of Breath of the Wild with this grip and controller configuration. I wouldn't mind playing fighting games on this. I wouldn't mind playing Smash Brothers on this, or Mario Kart, or anything competitive. I would play For Honor on this if I could. This is great, but the Pro Controller just feels better. It has the that kind of silicone, textured grip, and it's just thicker and easier to hold on to. I just like it better.
Okay, would you recommend somebody buys a Switch on launch? Have you spent enough time with it to come up with that recommendation?
Yeah, unless you just have no desire whatsoever to play Breath of the Wild, if you're just not a Zelda person, then you have to ask yourself, am I willing to wait a month or 2 months with nothing but Bomberman, I Am Setsuna, Fast Remix, Shovel Knight, stuff like that. There are a lot of great games coming out at launch, but you won't have another AAA first-party Nintendo game to look forward to until April, and then spring, and then summer. It'll be over the course of the next 3 or 4 months that we see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, and Splatoon 2 coming out. So if you want a few incredible Nintendo games to play, it'll be summer until they're all there. But if you are at all interested in Breath of the Wild, and I mean at all, my hype level for Breath of the Wild was, pretty mediocre. If I'm being honest, it's not a game that I have been talking about constantly and like really, it was on my radar because it's an obvious large game for Nintendo. It's something that they're counting on doing well, and I knew they've been pouring their heart and soul into it, so it was on my radar by default. But it wasn't something like, man, I'm just salivating and can't wait to get into another Legend of Zelda. That point didn't really hit me until I was a couple hours in, and I realized how freaking good it is. It's going to take everybody by surprise. So yeah, I mean, if you're at all into that, the answer to your question is yes. I highly recommend getting it as soon as you can. It's going to blow your mind. The first time you spend a few hours with Legend of Zelda, and then you realize that you need to go to bed, but you want to play, and you just pop it out and take it to bed with you, you're going to smile and you're going to say, "This is incredible. How did I live without something like this the past few years?"
Yeah, I was on the same boat where big Ocarina fan, Ocarina Time. Not so big a Majora's. Wind Waker was nice, but Skyward Sword and Twilight, I just really felt like you guys need some new ideas, and I don't like the new ideas that you're doing. And I thought Breath of the Wild was going to be more of the same, but it seems, from what I've seen, like they are going back to a bit of what made the first Zelda really interesting, in that it's a much larger world, and it's a more open world, and it's not just everyone's going to do this dungeon, this one. We were talking on Hangouts how we could have totally different experiences. Now you're on right now it's like a preview embargo only, where they say you can talk about the first 5 hours you've had at this game. So I guess in those general vague terms, maybe just some impressions. We don't want you to get in trouble from the big N.
Yeah, so
maybe bring in your lawyer.
One thing that I want to talk about, and I think I can, because there are a few of these within the first 5 hours.
Okay.
When they say the first 5 hours, I'm assuming they mean the Great Plateau area, which is where they've pretty much let everybody kind of run around when they play the demo versions. And that's a large area, and it'll take you a few hours to get. That's basically when you think Ocarina of Time, going through that initial village, and then the Great Deku Tree, and then finally getting out to Hyrule Field, where you can see the castle in the background. Like that, getting to that point is basically getting through the Great Plateau area in Breath of the Wild. It's kind of the intro stage. But during those first few hours, you will encounter a few of these shrines. And you've seen those kind of like, those ruined towers where you go in and they're these little isolated puzzles. That's one of the most brilliant things in this game, that the shrines have they've kind of replaced the big dungeons from Ocarina, Majora's Mask, Twilight, Skyward Sword, Wind Waker. You always have like the fire dungeon and the sky dungeon, the water temple, temples dungeons, whatever. Now we have these shrines, and shrines are basically like a best of collection of Zelda puzzles. Each shrine is one puzzle. There's one concept, one puzzle, one thing to figure out to beat the shrine. And I've done, 14 or 15 shrines so far, and every single one has been very satisfying. They've had clever puzzles. I've been stumped a couple times. But in Zelda's past, you had to like work through these really laborious dungeons, and then you finally got to a puzzle, and then you had to work through and travel through a bunch of stuff before you figured out what the puzzle wanted you to do. And then you had to backtrack and kill a bunch of other enemies to try to collect the parts that you needed to solve the thing. And it was satisfying. It's always been satisfying to solve puzzles in Zelda, but you really had to work to get to that point where you could actually start freaking solving them and then getting through. The shrines in Breath of the Wild are just that part. They isolate. This is the problem. Can you figure out from your surroundings and your available powers what you need to do, and then can you do it? That's all they are. You just dive right into it, and they're great. They're like, you don't have to do any of them after the first part, but I've been seeking them out. Whenever I see one, I go for it. They don't feel like worthless side quests. There's always good treasure in there, and the puzzles are always really, really spot on. I mean, if you're a fan of Legend of Zelda puzzles, this is going to be, for that reason alone, Breath of the Wild is going to be your favorite Zelda game, because the puzzles are just instant, and they're all really, really smart. So
that seems to play really well on, I guess, the open world feel, where they're letting you take this world on at your own pace. You go to a shrine, and it's all sort of bite-sized little moments. If you get stuck on a puzzle, you can easily just hop off and go to another one. Whereas the other Zeldas were so linear, the 3D ones in a way where you weren't going to this dungeon if you hadn't completed this one, and because they were so item based, right? You needed to unlock this dungeon and with the story, and you're going to get the boomerang here, and you needed it for the next one. So this, and I've been looking at a little bit of video while you were chatting and putting that on the stream here, and it's God, this game looks amazing. It is so beautiful. The particle effects, like the sunsets.
It's
Holy
incredible.
God.
I didn't know that Nintendo like had caught up with the like graphical I mean, Nintendo always finds a way to make their games look really good, but they are always kind of like a little bit behind. But Breath of the Wild, I'm seeing, when the sun's rising, I'm seeing like foggy beams of light shooting through trees and the reflection of the sunrise going through these blades of grass. Something interesting, Game Explain noticed that the game runs more smoothly in handheld mode than it does while docked. There are certain points in the game where there's a lot going on screen, in docked mode where the frames will drop somewhat. It's like a little bit of Bloodborne effect. And in handheld mode, those areas don't cause the same issue.
Sure, because it's running at 720 instead of 1080.
Right, and what's nice is it looks just as brilliant when you're playing in handheld mode on that little screen. And the screen is big enough on this thing when you're holding it in your hands and it's this far away from you. It's relatively you're getting the same amount of picture. It feels like the same amount of picture as when you're sitting further away from your bigger TV, if you understand what I'm saying. It really, the screen is just the right size for that. You get all the detail. When you're running, you can see the little gritty reflection in the ground from where it's been raining, and you can see the granular detail on the side of the mountains, and it really is a fantastic screen. So yeah, that's the art direction and the attention to detail, and really just graphics, man. People are the people who aren't technically inclined, they're going to say these graphics are so good, and they are. The graphics are so good. It's a beautiful game.
That always reminds me of a friend. Last year, he had played like one of the Tomb Raider reboots, and he's telling me the graphics were so good, it looks like Skyrim. It's like, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not like a super nerd,
let's play some Uncharted.
Yeah, that's for if you don't research video games and like read a lot about graphics engines and effects and particle effects and physics, all you know is it looks good or it doesn't, and that's all you need to know. The graphics are so good.
So stylistically, what kind of feel are you getting from what they're going for here? Because with Wind Waker, they went for the cel shaded look. Mm-hmm. Twilight Princess was a bit more of I don't know, foggy in a way. It was kind of a blurred, almost like impressionist feel. Skyward Sword, is it continuing on a little bit of what they're doing there?
It's the way Link is designed is more Skyward Sword-esque, just the way he looks and the way his face is. But it's kind of hard to tell. I've been calling it almost like a watercolor cel-shaded. It's like a really detailed, vibrant watercolor cel shading.
He has a bit of a glow to him.
Yeah, he does, and everything in this game is that's going to give people the wrong impression. It is hard to describe. It's hard to describe if you haven't seen it and like been playing it in person.
Sure.
I'll be very interesting to see how it looks for you. I can't wait for you to capture some gameplay footage from the Wii U. I really want to know what some of these areas look like, comparatively between Wii U and the Switch. But the overall character design, it feels like a total reboot to me. This is getting into a little bit of testy. Like I don't know exactly who I can talk about at this point. I mean, in trailers we've seen Zelda, vague. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen what Zelda looks like.
But you don't have to say anything about what's going on in the game. I wouldn't want. You've got a Switch, you've got Zelda, so let's you just enjoy your review time with it. Just be as vague as you can.
Yeah, well, I want people to know that this feels like a total reboot for Zelda, not only in the way that dungeons and puzzles play out, not only in the way combat and exploration plays out, the survival aspect. You're constantly, speaking of Skyrim, when you're wandering, you're constantly collecting all kinds of flowers and nuts and ingredients and scavenging. When you kill enemies, you're picking up things that they've dropped in parts of their bodies and picking up insects and little critters, and everything can be combined in these cooking vessels, these giant like stone woks, and enemy parts combine with insects to make different kinds of elixirs that affect your body in different ways, and fruits and nuts can be combined with certain kinds of plants that have status altering effects, and you need some of them when you go into colder areas or warmer areas, and just to replenish your hearts when you're battling. Cooking, scavenging, collecting things is a huge part of what you're doing when you're out exploring the world. And there's so much out there. I mean, I always leveled up my alchemy when I was playing games like Morrowind and Skyrim because I loved seeing plants and flowers and stuff out in the world and just knowing what they were and picking them up and using them. That's a huge part of what you end up doing in Breath of the Wild. And it's just you've never done that in a Zelda game before. And combat is very different because you have to worry about the durability of your weapons, and you're constantly picking up new ones and finding new ones out of necessity. And it keeps you using different types of weapons. You're using spears 1 second, and then a giant hammer, and then a sword, and then a claymore. And it feels very survivalist and gritty. It feels like a wilderness. It does have a very wild feel to it. They nailed that sense of adventure. You hear that story about Miyamoto and the inspiration for making Zelda, just like going into caves and exploring as a boy. And I think for boys specifically, and any girl who has anybody really who has a sense of adventure, if you can channel that like inner kid, if you have a memory of being outside and climbing that bigger
for
tree.
For some gamers, that might be a stretch.
Yeah, I know. But everybody has experienced a sense of adventure from something. And this is the first time since I was a kid that I played a video game that kind of rekindled that sense. This is not hyperbole. The first night I was playing, a few hours in, I was still in the Great Plateau, and I was in this field, and I was so like the lights were off. It was dark. I was in the zone with this game, and I had this moment where everything kind of fell silent, and it was 100% immersion. I was standing in the field, and the breeze was blowing. I could hear it going through kind of all my speakers around me. You could really hear the breeze filtering through all these blades of grass and these reeds, and you could see all these things in the distance and these trees kind of swaying, and the piano just very meditatively just kind of plays on these upper keys. And I took a big breath in. I felt like I was there, and I wanted to smell the air around me. I mean, sitting in my chair here where you're looking at me right now, I took a huge breath like I was out there in that field, like about to, just decide where I was going to start running next. And I keep coming back to that feeling when I get into new places on a frosty mountainside or in this desert plain. Every place that I explore and discover feels like an adventure, like I'm out there doing something cool. So that's been a huge part of this magic for me as I've been playing this game. I think a lot of people are going to experience that too. And a lot of that comes from the music too. A lot of that is just the ambiance and the lack of music. And when it does show up, how just so well composed and subtle, it never overstays its welcome. They nail the ambiance in this game. It's a delight to be in the world.
It was a delight to have you, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing your impressions on the Switch, and you're very poetic. I mean, put that on the back of the box, Nintendo. Matthew Hayes just taking a whole breath of the wild. Thank you very much, Matt, and thank you everybody for watching. If you liked it, share it with somebody that might like it too. Stay tuned for more. Bye for now.
Right on.